How y'all doing? This is going to be a game review of a simple little card game for 15 bucks, similar to the Frank Frazetta game I did not too long ago, and it is Clash of Steel. And it is a tactical card game of medieval duels. The idea, this box will have everything you need. The idea is you are playing one of two medieval fighters using the cards in a turn-based system to try and hit them hard enough to win and take all the stamina. I saw this over at the game store I go to, Games HQ in Oklahoma City, and it was one of those pre-opened boxes that they sold for 10 bucks. And the time I decided to try and come back and get it, it was already sold out, of course. So I went ahead and ordered online. And I found this game was kickstarted some time back, and through the stretch goals, they got into a few little things, casing and all that. Well, we'll show you what it's about. I'll try to do my best to show you the cards and the phases and how the game's set up, but if that doesn't come out clearly, I can link down below to the guys who created it and show you a simple round on how this game works. So let's give it a look. Okay, so this is all you get out of this game. It's a nice little box here with a clamshell magnetic closing mechanism there, if that's the right way to go. You open it up and there will be an instruction booklet, everything you need to know, and you'll have two empty boxes. Fair warning, when you get this, one box will have all the cards, the other one will be empty. That's fine, it's all in this one. You just sort them out between the two colors. So what you do is you take one out. This will represent one player, and let's see, you have various cards. Obviously you can tell which one's which by the colorations, and there'll be on the backs it'll tell you what kind of card it is. There'll be stand, item, action, that sort of thing, and you'll have the nice little artwork representing the knight's actions, this sort of thing. So yes, and there will also be separate cards that are not red or blue. There's the initiative and range cards. We'll get into that shortly. So let's take a look at how these are sorted out. Okay, so here you have a basic setup of how a game is when you play the game. You take each deck, stack them based on whatever determined their action is. Sorry, I don't have a wide angle lens, so I have to do this. So, either way. Each one, you play in a phase, and this whole thing would be called your hand. And each type of, description here is a phase within a hand. Your opponent will set the same thing up with his colors. There are also two sets of cards that are shared and determine the actions of each round. There's the initiative. We have a red side and a blue side. Whoever gains initiative will have certain advantages during the course of combat. And we have the range. And the range is set up at the beginning here. There's hand range, the shortest range. You got arm's length. Then you got a step. Then we got a reach. And again, when depending on this will determine how effective your weapons or other actions are per round of combat. This will change depending on the actions of who wins or loses. So, there you go. Now, the idea is as you play the game, you're going to try and take out your opponent's stamina. This will serve as the force. This serves as a force that you use against your opponent to try to win the rounds of combat, end up depleting his stamina, and then, of course, you win the game. Other cards throughout your hand will add more to the stamina, so you add up the points between stamina and your force points, plus or minus, and see whoever wins that round. And depending on that, you lose a certain number of cards. Each round, a player is going to lose their stamina, depending on which type of action you use. You may lose your lowest number of stamina played, your highest number of stamina played, both depending on your opponent. And if your opponent uses the right attack, you lose an additional stamina card. And so that's the basic idea of the game. Let's go over each of the cards and see what they do. Okay, the first one of the cards we're going to look under is Stance. Whichever one you draw may have certain effects. If you choose neutral, well, that doesn't affect anything involving initiative or not. If you choose strong, this will give you a +1 to your force, which you add to your stamina to see if you can win against your opponent's force. If lose initiative, but if you play this one, you'll lose initiative if you have it. So, now this one is quick. this will give you a -1/4, so it puts a penalty in whatever it is you're trying to draw up against your opponent. But if you win with this one, by all means, you'll gain the initiative the next time, unless your opponent wins playing quick. So that's your stance cards. Now we're going to go to the item cards. There are 6 per player. But you can only choose 2 per game, so you have to choose wisely. Your weapons are basic medieval weapons. You got the spear, which if you're at the reach range will give you a +1 attack and +1 to defend. If you're at step or arm reach, you get +1 to attack. But if you choose this weapon, you cannot choose the shield, which is the next one. The shield, okay, it's not a real weapon, but adds to defend and +1 to defend versus spear. And also you can't choose the spear. And we got the dagger. Okay, this one, if you're at hand range, you get +2 to attack. Any other range, arm, step, or reach, you get a -1 to attack and -1 to defend. Okay, and then we got the axe. +1 attack versus shield. If you're at arm reach, you get +1 attack and +1 to defend. The warhammer. This one has a +1 to attack versus dagger, and in addition to if you're at hand range, you get +1 attack and +1 to defend. The sword. This one will have a +1 attack versus axe, and if you're at step range, +1 attack, +1 defend. And there you go. So there's your item cards. You choose 2 during the course, and you play those throughout your entire game. On to the next action. I say on to the next action because the next one is action. Now, let's take a look at these. These are how you move during each round of combat. Depending on how you win or lose, we'll determine what the outcome is. We have to move. Discard lowest played stamina. That's if when you do your stamina round here. So if you win with this one, you lose of the 1 or 2 cards you played, you lose the lowest played one. If you win, if you win with this one, you can change the range. And and retrieve your disarmed weapons, if any. See, some moves will allow you to discard 1 of your 2 weapons. So if you win with this one, you change the range, and you also get your item back. Attack. If you play this one, whatever stamina cards you play to try and win this round, you lose both of them. And if you win with this one, you deal a hit, and it causes a wound on your opponent. It could be head wound, could be a leg wound, chest wound. That depends on which one of your targets you hit. Then we have defend. This card, if you play this one, all the stamina cards between any of the stamina cards you play, you discard the highest. You win, you disarm your opponent's played item. So that's one where we talked about the defend earlier, is to try and beat his attack and try and disarm his weapon. So there's your actions. Let's go to the next phase. The next phase is target. These are cards you choose, where whichever one you choose will hit a different part of his body. You can aim high. If you win a round of combat with this ability, you deal a head wound. Any of the wounds you dealt can only be dealt once per game. So after about 3 successive hits, these may not be worth much after that. You can hit low. If you win with this one, you deal a leg wound. And if you win, in mid, you deal a body wound. Each one of these deal negative to your modifiers within the next future rounds. Next is maneuver. You only choose 1 of these per game, so you gotta choose wisely. And they'll give you slight advantage, and it can be used, it can be used whenever they say it can be used. Some can be used anytime or whenever, like feint here. You could use this in phase 1. If this card to swap your target or action. So that's probably why they do it in the first one, in the first phase. We got the armor, which is to be done in phase 4. If this one you could discard to avoid taking wound. You could still lose stamina, but you won't take the head wounds, body wounds, or leg wounds. Second wind. This can be played any phase. Discard to recover any one of your discarded stamina cards. So stamina is a life bar. In most general sense, the stamina, once discarded, that's it. But this one will give you a chance to recover one of those cards. Dash. Discard this one to change the range. during the course of the round. So regardless of this would be good if your opponent has the initiative and has gained the range at the beginning of the game. You could discard this and change it to your favor, especially if the item favors for it. Then we have retrieve. This can be done in any phase. Discard to retrieve any one of your disarm items here. So there's another way to discard one of the 2 items your opponent dealt with you in a previous round. And there you go. Those are your maneuvers. Next we have is stamina. As I said, this is basically your lifeblood of the game. Lose all your stamina cards, you lose the game, your opponent wins. Your stamina cards will have a number value on the upper corner. They range from 1 to 5, and you'll have 3 of each value. 3 5s, 3 4s, 3 3s, 3 2s, 3 1s. So what you do is that you, in a basic round of combat, you choose 1 or 2 and use that in relation to your other cards that add to your force points. So if I chose these 2, well, there's 5. And 5 and maybe +1, -1, and you add these all together, and that's how much force you did with that round. Your opponent does the same thing. If you beat him, then you win the round, and depending on what actions you use, you discard 1, the highest, the lowest, or both, depending on what you use. So that explains that. In the course of choosing your initiative in the game, you start off by bidding your opponent any number of stamina cards you wished against his. Could be 1, 2. If I understand the rules, it could be any number of it. You can set your own house rules if you think this is way too easy. But whoever wins before the game begins by their bid will gain initiative. The drawback is whoever wins the initiative discards their cards, so they lose a little bit of health in essence, but they'll gain certain advantages with initiative throughout the course of the game to make it higher chance for them to win. And also another thing about the stamina, whenever you discard your cards during the course of it, your basic actions cannot make you lose your last stamina card. So whenever you play your stamina costs, by doing this action, if you're down to 1, you're stuck with that unless your opponent deals with a strong hit. The last stack are wound cards. These are not drawn up during the phases. They're delivered to your opponent provided you win. And when you win whenever you win a round of combat, the target will determine where you hit. So, for instance, if you aim low, you win, your opponent now gets a leg wound, which gives him -1 to move. And if you hit him with in the middle, you give him a body attack, give him -1 to attack. And if you hit your opponent high, you hit him on the head, it gives him -1 to defend. You cannot give any more than 1 of these, and once all 3 are delivered, you pretty much have, the target doesn't seem to much matter after that, as far as I understand it. So there you go. There's the wound cards. So this is how a basic game will be set up between 2 players, as I mentioned before. All mine cards, all the blues cards are set in a proper phase order, same with the opponents. The first thing before you begin the game is choose your items and choose your maneuvers. Each player chooses 2 items. But they don't reveal to the other player which one they've chosen. And they'll choose a maneuver. The opponent does not know what items or maneuver is chosen. Now, the second thing next after this is to choose the initiative. That will be represented by this card. Who gets the initiative will depend on who bids proper stamina. You take up any of your stamina cards. You could bid as many as you want. Bear in mind, if you win, you lose all the stamina you bid to get that initiative. The opponent gets puts theirs back in the deck. So to keep this simple, I'm going to choose 2. Again, you can choose any amount. Again, you don't reveal until you both are ready. So let's take a look. All right. Now it looks like red has got a 3 and a 2, so that's 5. The blue has got 2. Red wins. So take the initiative card, flip it to red, put it in the center here so we know who has the initiative. Red lost, so he discards and ends up somewhat winded the first round. Blue takes his stamina cards, puts it back in his deck. Alright. Now,
now that you have the initiatives chosen, now we get to see about the range. The opponents, but each side reveals their item cards. In this case, the sword and shield for the blue, the item cards for the red, shield and axe. And then whoever has initiative now gets to choose the range. Now, and let's see, and you could choose since you know both of your opponents and yours. You may decide based on the pros and cons of these weapons. You can probably choose a range that's best suited for it. So it's now let's see, red has chosen the axe and the shield. And it says the axe has a good advantage during the, any round at the arm's length. He's going to choose the arm card and places that. That is the beginning range of the first round of combat. Okay, so we keep talking about the initiative. What's the big thing about this? Well, normally, without initiative, both players would play, pick their cards and play their phases face down until they get to stamina, where they bid that, reveal all their cards, and then find out how much they, what the results are. But in the case of initiative, there's a slight advantage that those who have it will have. I'm going to set these cards right here, so we know the range and all that. Alright, so instead of placing it face down, like so, red could choose to wait, and in so doing force the other player to reveal their card face up. This will now inform red of what the blue is trying to play, so they can choose accordingly. But they'll play theirs face down. And they'll keep doing this throughout each phase up until the stamina phase, where in the stamina phase, the person without initiative chooses their cards first, lays them down, and the same with the red, they play them at the same time. So there's no surprise there. This way, the person with initiative could choose to wait for all or some or none at all and see what happens. Okay, so let's take a look further and see where we can go with this particular round here. Continuing where we were, red decided to wait and force the blue to reveal them, choosing there to choose their stance. Let's go to the items. He's not going to wait. He's going to play his card and act with the blue. The action, well, he decides to do the same. Alright, so we'll just choose a card here. You don't have to choose from the top like I'm doing. You get to choose your card, whatever color you are. The target, well, he's gonna decide to wait. He's gonna reveal blues. He shows a mid attack, and well, red's gonna do the same. He's not gonna reveal his card. He's gonna lay it face down. He sees mid. Now here comes the stamina phase. Now, with the stamina phase, red cannot wait with this one. Blue chooses his cards, one or two. In this case, I'm going to choose blue. He chooses face down, same with red. Now, again, I don't have to choose from the top. You could search your deck and choose any amount you want to bid with, one card or two card, or in any of the numbers that's in there. Now, now we get to reveal. Okay, so we get to reveal the cards, and we get to see the results. Alright. Okay. So let's go with the blue here. Blue plays strong, giving him +1 force. And he plays with a sword, which gives +1 attack versus axes, which is what his opponent has, so there's 2. Plays attack. If he wins with this one, he gets to deal a wound on the opponent. And if I remember the rules correctly, he will do an additional stamina cost, which I'll get into that shortly. He hits the mid of the body and bids 5, and a 1 in stamina. So 5, 6, 7, 8, force against his opponent. Now let's take a look at the reds. Red plays neutral, does it's a neutral stance, does no pros and cons. Plays with an axe. This will give him +1 attack versus shield. Not the case here, but he's at arm's reach. Remember, he chose the distance, so he gets +1 to attack and +1 to defend. So there's 1 point right there, if I understand it correctly. He chooses to move. If he wins with this one, he would he could choose to let's see, discard lowest played stamina card, and if you win, you could choose to range, which he already has, and retrieves retrieves a disarm item, which is not the case here. He hits high, so if he chose an attack, that would deal a head wound, and it's a 5 and a 4 in stamina. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So he wins over the blue. Red wins this round. Now you can also look at your maneuver cards to see if if they apply. The red has chosen dash, which you can discard to change range. No real need there. If a blue, he can choose. Well, let's see. He can avoid taking a wound if given an armor, but But I don't think you could choose only to use those whenever you think is needed. Okay. Now, after the, so we see from this round that red won because he had higher force altogether compared to blue. Now you gotta play the stamina cost. This happens to both players, and that depends on what action they played. Now, in the blue's case, he's played the attack card. Whether he wins or lose, by playing this, he discards both of his stamina cards. He doesn't put them back in, he discards them. He's that much less on life. Now, since the move that red has done, the action he did is move, and he will only have to discard his, let's see, his lowest stamina card, which is the 4. He discards that one, and he puts the 5 back in his deck, and that's it. And then you continue the next round, and you judge the effects of each of these against the opponent, and then play another round with that. You keep going until the stamina runs out, and and therefore you win. Also, bear in mind, the stamina cost I just displayed here will not ever force you to take away your last card and in effect killing you. In order for you to do that, you would have to win, if I understand correctly, the attack card. This one, deal a wound, but also if you win with that, it takes away the last stamina card, and that's how you win the game. So, I could be wrong. Please correct me if that is not correct. But this is a one-round example of how the game is. Hopefully this will give you an idea that, you play a couple of this, maybe break down the rules to your own effect. You should be able to find some enjoyment out of this. My last game review, the Frank Frazetta D-Dex, card and dice game, I had one person comment that was a bit kind of a bit lame. It looked very too simple. This one, same cost, about $10 to $15 as the D-Dex Frazetta game, but a lot more tactical, much more strategic. So there you go. Clash of Steel. If you find it, check it out. I think it's a pretty good buy. Thank you all for watching. You have a nice day.